Hey guys, so today we just want to talk about our astronomical daycare costs and why we pay over $4,400 a month in daycare costs.
It's the video we don't want to talk about, but I mean, yeah, it is pretty expensive.
Yeah, so we'll go over some of the numbers, and this is the true cost of having kids that no one talks about until you actually have kids and you need to register them in daycare. The accountant here has done all the math.
Did the math, ran the numbers. It is very expensive to have 3 kids in the short period that we had them. So they're all a year and a half apart, and they're all 3 and under. So that's kind of why our costs are kind of so high right now.
Right now. Hopefully that gets better.
It will get better. It will.
But yeah, currently we pay over $4,400 a month in daycare bills. Yeah, it's a lot. So let's break it down. Let's break down the numbers.
So on a monthly basis, we pay $4,438, which is approximately $1,109 on a weekly basis, and it's $53,000 on a yearly basis. $53,265. So
Net, right?
Net. So that is essentially you have to make an earning, assuming a 40% tax rate of $88,000 just to pay all of that money to a daycare, essentially. So it is very expensive, and we're privileged to be in the position we are so that we're able to do it and still make money. But yes, it is very high cost daycare right now.
It's pretty unsustainable.
Yeah.
So even with both of us working, it's almost like one full check goes to daycare.
One person's
almost
check, yeah.
like one person's salary goes to daycare. So I feel like it's pretty unaffordable and unsustainable for most people. So to be able to have kids, and this is just this is like double our mortgage. This is just so much money.
Yeah. The crazy thing is, like, you still have to provide all the necessities to the daycare. So the diapers, the wipes, all the food, the formula at least for the infant. So it is a very expensive just to have someone to look after your kids while you're at your job making money to make that happen.
Yeah, it's crazy. And even if like one of us were to stay home or whatnot, we would still, in the long run, lose money from our career and have career stagnation, wage stagnation, and probably career regression, at least for me. So if we're out of the workforce, if one of us were to stay home. So and then we would lose retirement, 401k, matching, all the benefits that go with having a career. And with the economy being the way it is, we would lose if one of us stayed home and then the other one were to lose their job. Well, we're both out of luck.
Yeah. So I know if you were to step out of the work environment and out of the employment in general, and 5 years pass to essentially you get free public education, you essentially lose out on all the skills and all the changes in your industry. And when you do try to re-enter, it's going to be very difficult to re-enter in the position that you had when you didn't. It's kind of like a step back career-wise if you do choose to have only one parent work and the other one take time off.
Yeah. And so what's crazy is, so for our enrollment, which typically fees go up every year in August, right? Yeah, it's every August, I think, is when fees go up. Our infant care is $1,647 currently per week. Our infant care is $1,647 per month. Our toddler we pay $1,495, and then our preschooler is about $1,300. And when we started daycare, what was it, back in 2021? Yeah, when we, infant care was like, what, like 1,500, and this is the same school, and now it's 1,647.
Yeah.
So what I'm paying for my toddler is almost what I paid for infant care a few years ago. So prices have just gone up, and they keep going up. And I know that the teachers don't get, the teachers aren't the one getting the money, the extra money. It's just, I don't know where the money's going, but it's so unsustainable.
Yeah, so just inflation in general, and the percentage that we see in the news, it's not indicative of the price hike in everything. Daycare costs have increased higher than the overall inflation rate. So I think they said in the past 10 years, it's gone over 25%. So what our parents ended up paying for their daycare costs is not equivalent to what we're paying for our daycare costs as a percentage of the income that we're making. So it is very expensive to have children, and it is something that our generation isn't doing because of how high cost it is. It's very expensive, and also all the other stuff that comes into it as being a committed parent and all that stuff. So it's crazy. It's crazy how expensive things like daycare is, and the real crazy part is like the people who are watching out after your kids aren't the ones making the money, because they get paid very poorly for the type of work that they do. And their wages aren't increasing. It's a byproduct of the economy in general, and it's just it's very hard to get anyone to look after the daycare industry. They have high turnover rates. It's just that I know, for speaking out of experience, like we have 3 kids in daycare, and each of our kids had teachers turn, and it's either because they want to pursue something else or just natural course. I mean, it's just
I mean, for the pay, for the work you do, you're not really compensated in your pay. So you have to pay the bills, you have to make choices and do what's best for you and your family. So I just don't know how people are even affording like 1 or 2 kids, and I don't know. It's just crazy, because I think they said the average salary when we looked it up online is like $65,000 to $70,000, and if you're paying $1,500 a month in care, how much is that per year? That's like I don't know, that's rent somewhere. That's rent. And that's just to go. That's not the diapers, the formula, the wipes, the sick days. When they're sick, you have to take them home, keep them home for like a day or 2. Yeah,
it is crazy. And what I foresee is like people who do want multiple kids, I think it's going to be normal to have like a 5-year gap of, once your first starts elementary school, then you can start having a second, so that way you don't have a double daycare cost hit at the same time. For us, it was very important that they were relatively within the same age range. I have my siblings are 1.5 years apart, so I wanted that for my kids, but it is not a decision that many people could have, just financially speaking.
And we had to run the numbers before we even got pregnant to make sure we were able to afford it, and then we saved for years ahead of time. But still, like the costs, it's so crushing every month, like, and it's important obviously, but it's just, when I think back to like my mom's era and my grandma's era, how much my mom paid in daycare, it was definitely not nearly this % of her income for the same care me and my brother got, basically. Mm-hmm. So they could still have like a normal life and still pay their daycare costs without it really affecting too much of their salary. Now it's just like unsustainable. People aren't going to be having multiple kids, and we want more kids, but we're gonna have to wait. So
I think if you want to time it perfectly, I think if you do maybe 2 at most, for most people. I mean, 2 is still a lot, but 3 is definitely, you're kind of hitting the point where it's extremely expensive. I don't think anyone has 4 that I know at the same time in daycare, but
No.
yeah, it's just a big timing exercise of, okay, when do I want to have these kids? What percentage of my income do I want to go to daycare? And then, yeah, eventually once they go into public education, it's a completely different story and animal. But
Still, you have to pay for after school care if we're both still working or whatnot. It's just like, yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, we wanted to share our daycare costs because our parents didn't even believe us when we told them that we paid this much money. They thought we were crazy. They thought we're making things up. Like, we can't be doing the math right. Like, there's no way you could pay that much in daycare costs. But this is the reality. This is what people are paying for their kids. And yes, most people don't have 3 kids in daycare, but still, people are paying roughly anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 a month, sometimes $2,000 a month, depending on where you are, for just 1 kid in daycare.
for 1 kid, yeah.
Which is a mortgage. That's rent. That's so much money. And people are wondering, why aren't millennials, Gen Z, having kids? It's because we can't afford it. Like, most people can't afford that.
Yeah.
It's just unsustainable, and something needs to be done, or else, I don't know if the
right.
government needs to subsidize or something, but I don't know anyone paying $4,400 in a mortgage. Like, it's just crazy.
Yeah, I just don't know the solution, to be honest. But I will say that it is very, if you want the population to grow, this is a very unsustainable model to have people want to have kids, because people within my age range that don't have kids don't want kids. It's like they get to keep all of their money, and they have a different other lifestyle as well, and it's probably not a value for them, and that's fine, to each their own. Yeah, for people that want kids, it will financially restrict them to have kids with the increase in daycare costs.
Yeah, it's just so much that financially, at some point, it just doesn't make sense. Even for us, like, doing the numbers, it's a tight squeeze.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it's just crazy. And it's just people are getting priced out of having kids. Even though I guess I see all these things in the news that they want us to have more kids, the government or whoever, but they don't want to subsidize or help out. And even the child tax care credit isn't that much. It's really...
Yeah.
What?
No, it definitely isn't. I mean...
I think it's like maybe $2,000 a kid, but like when you compare that to the cost of daycare, like that's barely a dent. And what we're paying, that's like, thank you. You just pay for diapers for a year.
Yeah.
Maybe.
No. We'll see.
So yeah, it's just unsustainable. And yeah, this is like the real cost. And so if people are telling you, like if you're looking around at daycare costs or you're looking to start a family, these are like the real cost. And since we started having our first kid in 2021, the cost of daycare is just gone up and up and up. And like, I don't know, I feel like there's no relief, and it's just drastically every year more and more, and then you have to pay this activity fee, this fee, that fee. It's so much that
it's a lot. I mean, we knew going in that it was going to be expensive, and we wanted to go through it, and we're 2 years out for having that number be sliced by a third. So, but yeah, I understand people, like I said earlier, it's going to be very normal to see a 4 to 5 year gap in ages between siblings, because that is kind of a very financially responsible way of just going through and having, if you want multiple kids, but yeah,
that's
just wanted to share our kind of perspective on the matter, and just what we've done and what we're paying, and hopefully to bring some insight to to you, so that you can see. You know, I know that it's not really discussed as often as it should be, but yeah, daycare costs are through the roof now, and there are no signs that it'll ever drop. I think
This rate.
yeah, every August we anticipate at least a $100 at least a $100 increase from the previous rate. So
Per like, maybe per kid too.
yeah, per
Like,
kid.
yeah, it's just it's a lot.
Yeah, the sibling discount is nowhere near worth it for you. It's like a $68 decrease per month.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, it's nice that they offer it, but but yeah, it's not as impactful. But yeah, it's just our little story.
Yeah. So if you plan to have kids or start a family, just start asking around. A lot of times daycares, they won't even tell you their tuition on the phone. You have to go to them in person to figure out how much it's going to cost. So just to give you some insight into the reality of how much it does cost. And don't come at us with a nanny or with a grandparent. We don't have anyone that, or family that can watch. We don't have anyone that's able to watch.
Nannies are even more expensive.
Whoa,
so,
way more.
Yeah, nannies are very expensive. Also, with the whole grandparents, like,
Most people are working.
boomers are working later than the previous generation did. You know, they're not retiring at that 60 or 64, you know, like they used to. There was a transitionary period during their lifespan where the employer paid the pension, and then they kind of flipped the script, and now 401ks are the employee's responsibility to build the wealth. And maybe that was something that they weren't accustomed to or whatever, you know, but they are working longer and harder, and they just cannot play that role in your village. And we do not expect them to, you know, because we understand that they need to get their finances in order to live their life and their retirement.
Yeah.
Because, you know, although it would be nice, it's just not something that is feasible. So, this is just the reality of the situation and having kids in general.
So if you pay crazy costs in daycare, drop us a comment. I'd love to hear, to know that we're not the only ones paying these extreme costs, these extravagant costs. So yeah, hopefully this helps somebody out there. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.